Okay, so I hope you enjoyed listening to that. It's a rather nice piece. That being said, we're really going to focus in here on the third movement and just the beginning of it. Now, this is the same thing we saw earlier, except we only looked at about this much of it. And now we're going to look at probably down to about here. Yeah, down to here. So, in terms of form, what are we looking at? We're looking at one section here up to this repeat. Okay, then it repeats. So we go back to here and we get that same section again. Okay, then we're going to look at another section and it repeats and goes back to here, and then we get it again. Okay, so what is the form? We can call this a few things. Okay, I'm just going to use a separate text document here to kind of take some notes. All this. Let's just talk first about how we notate stuff. When we use lowercase letters, we're talking about smaller sections, and larger case letters are bigger sections. Okay, so if we say a, a, so if we call this a to this repeat, then we have to say that twice, right? A, and then B, B. Okay, so AABB, right? This is a definition of binary form. So we call this binary form. That means AABB. Now there's another type of form that this also might be, okay? So let's look a little bit closer here. So when we look closer, what we see is, look at these two little A's here, this dum bum bum da 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 da. Okay, we have that again here, dun 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 da 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 da. So it's very similar, right? So could we say this is A just up to here, and then this is A again? Well, not quite, because this is different, right? This second 4 bars is different than the first 4 bars, but very much related, right? Very similar. So what we might say is it's A prime, right? So we notate that by saying A prime. By the little apostrophe means it's A, but there's something different about it. So we're zooming in a little bit more focused here, because now we're dividing this in half. So now we're saying A is just this, first 4 bars, and A prime is the second 4 bars. Okay, so we can call that whole thing capital A. Okay, so let's get rid of this for a minute, just so it's not confusing. Okay, so these two together make capital A. All right, that's the notation that we're using here. So now let's look at the second half. We have, is this, these first 4 bars of the second half, are those related to A? Let's look at just the shape of it. Na, 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 na. Do we see anything like that here? Kind of there. Not really, though. It's a bit different. I'm only thinking about up to here, okay? So now what we're talking about is B. This is B. But what about this? Dun 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 dun, dun. Right? Isn't that the same as that? Dun 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 dun, dun. It's exactly the same, actually. So here we have A, again, lowercase a, again. And it is very slightly different because I think the cadence is different. Yeah, if you look here, we have E to D. Here we have B to A. So it's very slightly different. So actually what we have is A prime prime, double prime, we would say. That means it's A, but it's different, and it's even different than that. So it's a third type of A. So now this is relatively far away from AABB, right? Now we have something totally different. We have A prime, B, B prime. And if we want to put a big letter on the second half, we could call it B. So B is B and A prime. That's what means B. So is this still binary form? Because binary form means AABB. No, this is not binary form. This is something a little different called rounded binary. Okay? Rounded binary, and we should point out that we haven't taken into account our repeats yet, but we will in just a second. In fact, let's do that now. Rounded binary looks like that, or another way to say it would be A repeating B, A repeating. Okay, so A that repeats, and then BA that repeats. And this could also be A prime if we wanted it to be. So do we have that? So we have this. So remember, I'm using capital letters here intentionally. So our A section is all the way to here, capital A section, and that repeats. So we have this much of it, yes. Capital A repeats. Then we have a B section, capital B, that repeats. We don't really have this. So we just have that. So, can we call this rounded binary? Actually, we can, but we need to go one more step. We're going to put this A in there, but the reason I can put that A in there is in the harmony. If we factor the harmony into our form analysis, then it makes a bit more sense. So let's go to a new video and let's add in the harmonic ideas that are happening in this section.